You know, folks, 13,000 plus employees within CalFire, and there is a process to get each and every one of those individuals in. Well, guess what? We're going to talk today about an amazing website that affords plenty of opportunities for folks to get into this wonderful organization. We're talking about joincalfire.com. Stay tuned. Let's get cooking. Hey, I'm Monty Manson, and with me is our Chief Deputy Director of Operations, Miss Annalee Berlew. How you doing?
Good morning, Monty. I'm good, thanks.
Good. And we have the Director and Fire Chief, Mr. Joe Tyler. Good day to you, sir.
Good morning, Monty. Thank you for hosting us today. Look forward to talking about where we're at with hiring and recruiting and the influx of personnel in the department.
Absolutely. One of the most important pieces of everything that we do in this organization. And so I think it definitely makes sense for us to just take some time to acknowledge some of the efforts that folks are doing across the department and provide resources and information for those folks who are listening to make sure that they also know that there are ways to get into the organization, become a part of this wonderful family that we are all so proud of. And so let's talk about how do we get people into this wonderful organization. Wanted to just kind of kick it off with this notion of Join CalFire. This is something that's a little bit new for us, and it might be new for some of our listeners. And so thinking maybe I'd hand it off to the two of you to kind of just give us a quick intro. Join CalFire, what is it? What does it do? What's it for? That kind of thing.
Well, I appreciate that. This has been something that has been in the process for some time. So I want to go back just a little bit. Yeah. We think about where we are and where we're going and the influx of personnel that we have across the department. And we talk about this a lot, where we are really in a position where a decade ago, the department was half the size it is today. And so we have made a lot of strides in that area, even during tough budget times. But it really goes to show what the women and men of CalFire are doing,
right?
That are really making a difference. And it isn't just in fire protection, but it is in fire prevention. It is in support services. It is in resource management across the board, right. Wildfire resilience. And so as we had these budget change proposals that had been approved by the legislature and signed by the administration over the years, we found ourselves with a large influx of uniformed personnel. Then we recognized that we can't do this without the support services Absolutely. Side of the house. So we made sure that we were really bringing in through direct mission support was really the start of adding support services positions, and finding ourselves as well in a position where we wanted to make sure that we had indirect positions or support services positions to support the influx that we're seeing. And so we are in year 2 of year 5 of the implementation of what we call the 66-hour work week.
Right.
And looking ahead on what that looks like. So as we've been discussing this over the last year, we made a decision that we were going to start wrapping some of our vehicles. And I think we got to 2 vehicles that were wrapped. I wish it was more. We'll work on that. Yeah. But 2 vehicles that were really wrapped to start really influencing the recruitment into the department. We stopped wrapping vehicles only because of the tight budget times, and we'll look at opportunities to fill that out. But on that wrap was a website. Chief Berlew was wondering where I was going with that. On that wrap was a website, and it was www.joincalfire.com.
Right.
And the team behind the scenes have been working on this for a long time. And we found ourselves in a position where it finally rolled out officially. You could go to joincalfire.com and it would roll you back to the Cal Careers website. But we're in a point now where we type that in and find ourselves in a position where it goes to a CalFire specific website on talent acquisition, recruitment, retention. It is a complementary tool to CalHR's Cal Careers website.
Yeah.
And in fact, it links back to that. But it was important as we're hiring thousands of employees for them to be able to go to a website that is CalFire specific.
Yeah.
Not CalFire specific as in the uniform, but CalFire specific as an organization. And so far, the team has reported there's been over 141,000 views to this website. That is growing in through all of our normal vacancies, separations, voluntary resignations, retirements. We know that we have nearly 2,000 positions that are vacant across the department. So we really have to look towards filling those positions to be able to meet our mission.
Right.
As for the joincalfire.com website, we really wanted to make it a website that didn't look like a government functioning specific website. Wanted to make it more user friendly,
right.
To provide things that we've talked about in the previous discussions, where it is really hiring guides and step-by-step processes, the filling out the applications. Going through the examination process just to get onto an eligibility list. That's important to note in state service. You have to take an exam.
That's right.
To get on an eligibility list, to then go through a hiring process to finally get an opportunity.
Yeah.
And so this website will take you through those step-by-step instructions
That's
of how to get there. Thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think what's so unique is, working for a state agency, there's so many different classifications that each state department uses, but we each have our own little flair for how we use those classifications and how that is, what those job duties are within each department. And so I think that's really the value of this Join CalFire website. It's if you are doing this job for this department, what is that all about?
Look like? Yeah.
And so I think that's the value. So it really complements the CalHR website where you can get the basics of every job. But this is, if you're doing that job for CalFire, what is it all about? And so that's the beauty, I think, of this website, to really add additional color to each of those positions and what each of those classifications are, and to really help people that are interested to come work for our department to see what different jobs are out there available.
That's
so
right.
often people want to work for our organization, but don't necessarily understand how many different opportunities there are. And so that's so important.
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking, nearly 190 different classifications just within CalFire alone that we offer. And like you said, Chief Berlew, I mean, that ranges from scientists to, office staff, to firefighters, to aviation folks, to cooks. We're going to talk about that a little bit. So many different types of classifications. And so what this Join CalFire does, I think, for folks is, like you said, it tells the CalFire version of what those folks can do together. How do we all come together as a team to make this great department move forward? And so we're very proud of all of the work that all of the different folks who have worked on Join CalFire have done to put this together and rolled it out. We're very proud of it, and so we encourage everybody to go in and take a look at it.
Well, we want to make sure that it's user friendly, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's what the team has done, is made it user friendly to be able to break down the exams, the application process, to be able to find the civil service classifications that CalFire uses, so users can read to that. Again, it reflects and redirects back to some of the CalHR information on Cal Careers as well. And as you said, it's across a multitude of classifications that we use. So what an advancement for us, especially in a time in which, just your normal California citizen, somebody who is looking to come into the state, somebody who is looking for an opportunity in state service, and
Right.
specifically with CalFire. But we also see, if I could be so blunt in this time, where the federal administration is going through deferred resignation program, reduction in force.
That's right.
And there are thousands of individuals, federal employees out there that have a wealth of knowledge here in California who may find themselves struggling in a position of whether they have employment with the federal agency or not. And so we welcome everyone, but also provide an opportunity to our federal partners to find more information out about CalFire.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, Chief Tyler, one of the other things that this Join CalFire site does is we all know, many of us who work in state government, the process is very specific. There are definitely certain things that you have to do at certain times in order to be successful with either your exam process or your hiring process and how you submit an application. And one of the things that Join CalFire does for us and for everybody who's seeking jobs is it tries to simplify that as best as possible. And so I think that's another important piece for folks to know out there is, come to joincalfire.com, have a look at all of the different classifications and positions that are available, but also it will help you figure out what to do. What are the ABCs, 1, 2, 3s of how to successfully take exams, apply for positions, and be successful. So I think it's a great site. And we're looking forward to what it's going to do for us in the future.
Just a start.
So with all of those, multitude of classifications and jobs that CalFire employs and all of the thousands of folks that it takes to bring this thing together, there are definitely some positions that we find a little bit more difficult to bring into our organization. And so we're really trying to bring efforts forward to make sure that we provide as much opportunity for those classifications. But I think we should just take some time maybe and talk about those and, kind of talk about what are some of the difficulties and what can folks do who are interested in some of these jobs. What can they do to kind of get a foot in to come into the organization? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think that we have certain jobs in our organization that historically we really struggled with filling. And I think some of them are jobs that people don't normally think about as part of CalFire. I think one of those that I've had a lot of experience working with over the years is our communications operators. And our communications operators, that's not public information officers, that's
Right.
actually our 911 dispatchers.
Yeah.
And it's the folks in our CalFire emergency command centers that are answering those 911 calls and are responding to calls for service across our state for dispatching our personnel, or dispatching our fire resources out, sent to medicals or to fires, to public assists across this great state of ours.
Huge.
It is
That's
huge. It's a
Yeah.
huge job, and it's a huge responsibility to be acting in that capacity. And that's one of those positions that we've really struggled to fill over the years. And we have a lot of openings for that positions in our 21 emergency command centers across the state and our 2 region command centers, as well as here in Sacramento. We have our command center here, our Sacramento Command Center. And so we're filling communication operator positions in all of those locations. And we really need people who are dedicated to that work, who want to be there for people in their worst moment when they're calling 911. Calling 911 is super scary for people. And to have a sympathetic voice on the other end of the line that is helping to get the resources there for you and your family is critical.
It is. And it's, it's kind of a funny thing. I'm thinking about that position, and it's something that, when you're watching the movies and on TV, that's one of those positions or one of those jobs that is very much glorified in television. But it is so important as a job to do exactly what you just said, which is to really take in a caller's very dire situation, whatever that is, and try to translate that into the type of service and help that we provide as an organization. So it's a very critical and important job. Something that's probably thankless, but it's also a very, very cool position to be able to say that you're a part of. So we're very proud of those folks.
And this is one of the reasons that the joincalfire.com website is so important. when you think of what you see at local government, when you think of what you see on television,
Yeah.
Civil service classifications in the state of California have unique names. So if a user was trying to find information on how to become a dispatcher, a public safety dispatcher,
Right.
they're actually going to find for CalFire it under communications operator.
Yeah, that's right.
So we encourage people to apply, as Chief Burlew said, across the state, here in Sacramento as well, to be able to do just that.
Absolutely.
Another classification that has some history to it is our what used to be forestry cooks. So forestry cooks used to be used historically in our fire stations and would provide meals to the firefighters. Now, today's version in our fire stations, our state fire stations, are the firefighters themselves are
Right.
purchasing and cooking their meals and being ready to go. But we found a spot where we now have 4 training centers. There was a time in which there was class spec consolidation work, so we moved away from the forestry cook and moved to the cook specialist positions. Also, food service technicians are the other classification that we use, but it's making a comeback within the department. And it's making a comeback in the department at our 4 training centers.
Yeah.
I guess 3, because Shasta College feeds for us at our Reading Training Center. But in Ben Clark, at Atwater, at Ione, we have cook specialists and food service technicians. And then in the fire center world, where our CalFire hand crews are at, we have opportunities where these classifications, these people who are making an impact, our cooks,
Yes.
are feeding our firefighter hand crews here again. So opportunities are abound across our fire centers across the state for food service technician and cook specialist position as well.
That is so cool. So for those of you out there who love to cook, for the masses, there are opportunities here again within our organization. And oh, by the way, for you young firefighters coming into the organization, as Chief Tyler mentioned, don't worry if you're so used to making top ramen for yourselves. Once you come into the fire service, you are going to get your shot at learning how to cook as well. So don't worry, you get some extra skills there in addition to firefighting. But our forestry cooks and our cooks are extremely important to us. We're very, very proud of them and what they do all across the state for this organization.
Oh, so true. We were up in our Happy Valley Fire Center a couple of weeks ago. Our executive team got up there. We were doing a tour of that site, and we happened to be there at lunchtime. And so the food techs were there, and all of the different cook supervisors were there, and got to really talk to them and see the great work that they're doing at that fire center, and really bringing nutrition in as well to those firefighters. It's so important when you think about the work that our firefighters are doing, not only on the fire line, but the fuel reduction work that they're doing, the training, all of those things. They're burning a lot of calories. That's a lot of food that's needed to come across those stoves every day, and just really figuring out those meal plans, that food, the nutrition to keep our firefighters healthy is critical as we move forward as an organization.
Yeah, it's beautiful work. Beautiful work.
So with our cooks, if someone is interested in a position across the state, food service technician and cook specialist 1 and cook specialist 2, joincalfire.com will help you navigate through that process.
Yeah, not a forestry cook any longer.
Not any longer. So I also love our where we're moving with our support services staff, because so often there's so much critical work going on behind the scenes. It doesn't matter whether it is in contracts, whether it is in human resources, whether it is in the professional standards program, whether it is in a variety of our recruitment programs. What we found over time is, or at least what I found over time is, the positions were doing this great work, but there were a lot of limits to promotional opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's important to note that the influx of support services positions to keep the wheels on the bus rolling behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, in fact, most of the time. That not only are we looking for positions such as office technician, but staff services analyst, associate government program analyst,
Right.
all the way up into staff service manager 1 and 2. Really is creating a promotional track and a career ladder across this department for our support services personnel.
Absolutely. And in addition to all of those, we have all of the different professional classifications as well, the researchers and project management, professionals and scientists. And I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And so, yeah, there are opportunities all over the place that are coming in to the department as a result of a lot of great work that folks have done within the department. So,
yeah. And I gotta give some kudos, right? We're sitting in a room with our communications program who is really keeping this running. So our information officers,
Yes,
our
for
communications team are significant. Our Forrester series, not to forget about our resource management mission that is so important
Right.
across the department. But what we find is that there are some educational opportunities out there through our UC and CSU systems, through our community colleges, and we really want to invest in those. And it's important for us to try to recruit and retain individuals and students coming out of those programs into a public safety, public servant place and place of mind. So we have positions, whether it is forestry aide, whether it is forestry technician, all the way up into our forester classifications, Forester 1, Forester 2, Forester 3, forestry assistant 2. I don't know if we have any forestry assistant 1s anymore. We may, so my apologies if I forgot somebody. But it is so important that we invest in those as well. Our forestry technicians are really hard to fill right now, but quite honestly, our whole Forester series could use a kickstart to be able to fill those critical roles in our resource management programs. So if people are interested in that, there are plenty of opportunities in that area.
Absolutely.
And that's one too, Chief, that we're really working on and the program's really looking on. Where is that career ladder? So someone that, may be in college now, getting some of those resource management style units in college that can come over, start taking those jobs, and then work their way up to becoming a registered professional forester if that's the track they decide to go. And so we're really trying to figure out what's the career path, that ladder that would correspond with that, to keep those people within the organization, knowing that there's a lot of work to be done in that world right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, in addition to everything that we've talked about, we definitely cannot forget all of our different classifications in the fire protection series. We definitely have a couple of hard to fill positions, in those areas, believe it or not. Although folks think that we might be all firefighting, obviously we're not. We talked about that, but there are a couple of positions that we struggle with a little bit. We want to talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about that. It's our series of seasonal firefighter, which is a temporary position, all the way up to our firefighter 2, our fire apparatus engineer, our fire captains. Those are the base level civil service classifications that we use across the state of California.
That's right.
Now, we use each one of those classifications in a variety of program-specific needs. So don't get, for our users and our listeners, don't get confused that you're looking for a specific fire captain opportunity when you're looking at eligibility as a fire captain as a whole. And we do have challenges. So to think back a little bit of time there, we got ourselves into a situation where we began hiring more fire captains than fire apparatus engineers. I'm sorry, more.
You were right.
Oh, I was
fire
right.
captains.
Yeah.
More fire captains than fire apparatus engineers. So we didn't have a pool of individuals from the fire apparatus engineer eligibility to fill all of our fire captains. So as part of the 66-hour work week, as part of adding personnel, it was to flip that inversion back over so that at the end of the day, at the end of the 5-year phase in of this, that there will be more fire apparatus engineers than there are fire captain positions in this department, which makes it a little bit more competitive. And when I think about the early 90s, when I started in this department, just becoming a fire apparatus engineer was very competitive.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's a spot we need to get back to. But I'll take an example that in 1992, I worked to become a paramedic. And so that is something near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And I watch closely, and I see our paramedic classifications across the state struggling in filling many of those vacancies. And I think it's an opportunity to really thank those local government agreements who utilize our paramedic classifications. We just went through a phase where we changed the class specification for the firefighter 2 paramedic classification, and the necessary experience for those individuals to have to be able to get on the eligibility list to be hired into the positions. Because when we hire you into a position, we're going to send you to our training center. We're going to train you in those necessary skills. So, just recently the state personnel board approved on their agenda changing those class specs with Riverside County representatives in the room, because really they have the largest impacts. They have had to do a large reorganization, reallocation of their paramedics, and that puts stress on our paramedics. So we need to fix that problem. Join CalFire.com is one of the ways working with the class spec revision to help resolve that paramedic problem.
Yeah, very cool.
I think it's also, sorry.
No, please,
I think it's also important to note that it's not a CAL FIRE specific problem.
Yeah.
It is the fire service in general. It is the California Fire Service as a whole. We all have struggles hiring paramedics, and we are trying to find ways to make it less difficult, remove obstacles and barriers to interested paramedics finding opportunities with CAL FIRE.
So, Chief, I'm going to ask you a question on that. I know, like you said, that being paramedic is near and dear to your heart. So let's talk about, just really quickly, what made it so near and dear to your heart for those individuals who are out there that are listening, who maybe are thinking about a career as a paramedic? What is it for you that really drew you to it? What is it that you could tell someone to say, hey, this is going to be a worthwhile endeavor? Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, you're going to make me go back in time and tell you that I never thought I wanted to be a paramedic.
There you go.
And just because that was not a side I was interested in wildland firefighting, I was interested in firefighting as a whole. Never thought I wanted to be a paramedic. And then I entered into a paramedic program and learned this world that I didn't understand. And really recognized in myself that something that seemed so difficult to me, I could accomplish. And as a result of that accomplishment, was able to give back as part of a public servant's heart to the community. And working as a paramedic in Redding and Shasta County, working as a paramedic in Riverside, working as a paramedic in El Dorado County, has just been rewarding. And I will tell you that when I came to Sacramento at the end of 2014, I kept my paramedic license up to date. And then there became a time that I realized that with everything going on, that I could no longer be a licensed paramedic because I just didn't have the time or scope. But I miss it every single day.
Yeah, there you go. So for all you potential paramedics out there, there are some encouraging words, and quite frankly, even for some of you who may not even be thinking about being a paramedic, sometimes you just fall right into it and it becomes a passion. And that could be for any of our classifications and things that we do here within the organization. So very cool. Thanks, Chief. So far, since we have implemented Join CalFire, I know we've gotten some feedback. Things are moving as they always do. But let's just talk quickly about some of the feedback that we've received, and kind of where we're at right now. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think we've received a lot of great feedback so far. It's cool because we're not only receiving great feedback from internally, our own staff that's using it as they're looking for different promotional opportunities or different jobs across our department, but externally as well. Folks that are new to the organization or potentially interested in coming to work for CalFire. We've been getting a lot of great feedback. I think you said earlier over 141,000 hits so far to the site.
Yeah.
And so that's already given us a lot of good information about how it's working. And that's only since May, right? It only launched in May. And we did this kind of like soft launch to make sure that we had all of the all the kinks worked out before we actually went live with it. And everyone so far has been really optimistic about what it is that they're seeing. And some of our long-term workers that have been with our department for a lot of years saying, hey, we didn't know all these resources were available to us. And
for sure.
Different stuff, just like even like videos on how do you fill out the application? What should you expect from an exam? And things that just aren't second nature to folks that aren't necessarily working for the state are available on that new site. So providing a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Chief, your thoughts?
Well, I said this earlier, and I'll just keep it short. And that is, it was a means when we talk about the health and wellness of our employees and our workforce as a whole, which is really what makes this department. This website is a means to reduce those obstacles, to make it easier for individuals inside the department and outside the department to find opportunities to make a difference.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so with joincalfire.com, we've talked about obviously all of the different opportunities that it is affording folks to apply and become a part of this family, and we're very proud of that. But let's talk a little bit more about some of the areas that it's really focusing on in order to bring that picture forward for would-be applicants coming into the organization. I think there's a lot of different programs and things that we're doing that point right to Join CalFire that brings this all together. So I was thinking maybe we could just take a second and talk about some of those things, both on the site and within programs that we're currently doing within the organization to bring this all together. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think this is a good way to start, is really to highlight that joincalfire.com is just one of many things that are going on. And so when you think about that as a tool, you start looking at the different ways that we're also recruiting individuals, and whether that be the individual programs that are going out into the field, whether that be the units that are supplying the personnel, the apparatus, the time, the energy, our communications programs that are really helping with that. And it is really about making sure that we're branded and people can see CalFire as an opportunity. I think our tagline here is igniting your passion.
That's right.
To be able to move forward. So, besides the joincalfire.com website, we have things like here at 715 P Street in Sacramento at the California Natural Resources Agency building, there is a career center, not a career center just for CalFire. It's for all the state agencies to really have an opportunity for people to walk in off the street, find specific one-on-one assistance to be able to work through the process. So that is one of those. We have a long-time program called RVETS, or Returning Veterans Enlisting Their Skills. Provides an opportunity for our returning veterans to find opportunities within CalFire, whether it be fire protection, fire prevention, support services, resource management, a list of opportunities that are available. And it's a long-time program that you can also find on the joincalfire.com website. And then we just got done with our annual Camp Sender program, Camp Sender in San Luis Obispo and Camp Sender in Shasta, where you have young women who are looking for opportunities within the fire service and really getting a hands-on experience of determining whether this is or isn't an opportunity for them.
That's right.
Yeah, huge kudos to our Camp Sender staff that's made up with both our employees and then also some of our partner agencies, Oakland Fire, our state parks agencies, different organizations that we work with that have, over the years have really built up that Camp Cinder program. And just like the chief said, the idea is to provide exposure to people that wouldn't necessarily know if the fire service was something that they were interested in,
right.
and to give them an opportunity to experience that. We did a wildland day, a structure firefighting day, a water day where they're actually out there on the lake or in the ocean doing rescues and water rescues and rope work and all kinds of different things, just to get a broader understanding of what it is that the fire service does. And opportunities like that are what provide people with interest in working for CAL FIRE and working in the fire service and getting out there at those different career events, career fields. And that's a lot of the stuff that we also show on that joincalfire.com website, which is, where are CAL FIRE recruiters at?
That's
What
right.
are the events we're going to be at? Where can you go and one-on-one have those conversations? The website's great, but sometimes you just need that personal touch, right? You want to be able to ask someone in person those questions. And so there's a lot of events that are listed on that website so that people know where can they go in person to talk to folks.
Yeah, that's really important. And I have to think back just briefly about Camp Cinder and that opportunity that we as an executive team took to visit both Camp Cinder South and Camp Cinder North, and the opportunities that we took to engage with the students who were there, those young ladies. And, they were asking questions about how we got to where we are. And I think it was important to hear that for them to further that contemplation about whether or not the fire service or CAL FIRE was for them. But these are all different types of opportunities that we're taking to reach out to the public and reach out to people, to give them and arm them with information so that they're able to say, yes, this is something I want to do, or, oh, you know what, maybe not, maybe in the future, but it's, we're finding these opportunities everywhere that we can. And so, I know we'll probably talk more about it, but I think it's important for all 13,000 of our employees to seek these opportunities to recruit folks when you can, and talk about the organization and what it is that, it's done for them as an employee. And I think word of mouth always trumps a lot of the other efforts, that we can do, because it's just real world conversation that I think people really gravitate towards. So I would just encourage people to continue to do that kind of thing.
No, and this is to continue giving some kudos in the world of Camp Cinder, is this thing that we certainly couldn't do alone. So besides CAL FIRE, we heard about Oakland Fire Department, Livermore Fire Department, California State Parks, California Conservation Corps, Shasta County Sheriff's Department, and I'm sure I missed Shasta County Fire Department, San Luis Obispo County Fire. I'm sure I have missed some organizations, but it really takes everybody coming together to be able to do this great work.
That's right. Yep.
Monty, I have to do one go back.
Yeah, please. Yeah, for sure.
When we were up at Camp Cinder, I think, traditionally we think this is a great exposure to young women for the firefighting side of our department. And you were talking about our executive team being up there. And so we were at a ropes and knots station and kind of going through some rescue stuff. And I was standing beside our chief counsel, Kelly Welchins, and she was up there. And one of the girls was showing her, some knots that she was working on, and kind of teaching Kelly how the knots she was doing. And she asked Kelly, well, what do you do? And Kelly said, well, I'm the department's lawyer. Mm-hmm. And I watched this young girl, her eyes light up, and she said, CAL FIRE has lawyers? Yes. You're a lawyer? And it was just so amazing to watch that connection and that inspiration for her to see that there's all these other opportunities. And here's, this strong woman that Kelly is in our organization that's leading our entire legal team. Yes. And to see that interaction of that young girl making that connection, that could be her one day. And so it's just all those things that you don't realize where those connections are going to happen.
We don't realize it. And that's why it's so important that each and every one of us has that recruitment mentality when we're out there, particularly, working with the public and engaging with folks. We all have opportunities to bring people in. And quite frankly, we also have opportunities to turn people away if we don't do it in the right way. So, a message to everybody out there, make sure you are recruiting the positive, all of the great things that this department brings to folks for their careers. So, yeah, absolutely. Very good point. So, Chiefs, we've had great conversations about joincalfire.com. We've taken, I think, the folks through most of the A to Z's of what the site does, what it's for, and how it can impact the building and the continued evolution of this organization. You guys have any final thoughts, things that you want to kind of close on with regards to joincalfire.com?
Well, I'll start with this is just the beginning, right? So we talked about this site just launched in May. We've already seen a ton of great feedback, and the team has a lot of ideas for how this can expand. We want to eventually create some kind of live chat that folks right online can be getting real-time feedback from our recruitment team and get their questions answered. We want to have a way that maybe they can save jobs they're interested or track their progress as they're working through the hiring process.
Right.
So there's a lot of other things that we're really looking at adding to this in the future. So I would say keep tuned. There's more to come.
There's more to come. All right.
And while we don't have, this live chat feature with our talent acquisition group, it's important to note that there is on our website now, Ask CalFire, and it is an opportunity that you can put in any question. And it's just one of many technological tools that we're using to make that public outreach. CalFire has a significant number of vacancies due to its ever expanding mission growth and the crisis of wildfire and forest resilience across California. So I would encourage people, whether you are inside the department or whether you are looking for opportunities to enter the department, to really go to joincalfire.com to find those opportunities that could be available to you. It's important really to bring us to a close and thanking some of our, those jobs that are available to you, those positions that are available. So whether it is our Office of Program Accountability that runs the RVETS program that I talked about earlier, whether it is the communications program that is promoting this, whether it is our talent acquisition group and our human resources or management services program that are really moving this forward. And of course, our information technology who help build and design this website and are maintaining it with up-to-date, contemporary, and accurate information is so important.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. This has been great. So folks, there you have it. JoinCalFire.com, something that is available for the masses. We want to bring all of the talented folks out there into this organization to continue to help it grow. And so, hey, tell a friend, tell anybody that you can, family, friends, cousins, uncles, aunts, whoever, folks who are interested in one of the 190 plus different classifications. You'll find it all there. And we will see you very soon. Hey, don't forget that the 5 Points podcast is available anywhere where you can get podcasts. Wherever you consume your media, 9 times out of 10, you will find it there. We will see you next time. But until then, we're going to consider this one cooked. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.